In a world that celebrates speed, we are accustomed to believing that delay is denial, waiting is weakness, and stillness is stagnation. But Scripture teaches the opposite. It teaches that the greatest strength is often invisible. It is not manifested in noise or haste, but in patience, in unwavering faith. The faith that holds, the faith that endures, the faith that continues, even in silence. Patience is not inaction. It is controlled power. Faith is not imagination. It is clarity above circumstances. Together, they form the invisible engine of every spiritual breakthrough. For what God builds through patience, no storm can destroy. And what He grows through faith, no force can shake. The modern mind and spiritual patience. The modern mind craves instant results. We want overnight success, instant cures, quick answers, and when they don't come, we panic. But every fundamental truth in Scripture is built over time, not in a hurry. Abraham waited decades for the promised child. Joseph endured betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment before his dream was realized. Moses wandered for 40 years with a nation that doubted at every turn. Jesus himself waited 30 years before he came into public ministry. And yet he chose the path of the cross, not a shortcut. There is no divine shortcut to eternal results. Delay is not punishment. It is preparation. Patience is not just waiting. It is about what you do while you wait. Waiting tests your faith. It exposes your need for control. It creates anxiety, doubt, and emotional exhaustion. But the real truth is this: spiritual maturity begins where emotional responsiveness ends. Patience and faith, the power of the heart. Psychologically, patience is retraining your brain to resist panic, sitting with discomfort, not demanding escape. Neurally, faith is the act of recreating thought patterns from fear to hope, from uncertainty to inner alignment. Every moment of waiting is building your inner world. Every delay is a silent teacher. Every unanswered prayer is a classroom of the soul. In Hebrew, the word patience is often translated as erek apayim, literally long-suffering, which literally means slow to anger, is deeply restrained. In Greek, the word is makrothumiotes, which combines macro and thumiot, meaning the ability to hold on to energy for a long time without anger. Biblical patience is not weakness. It is the ability to stay aligned with truth over time, especially when it is tested. It is not the absence of emotion. It is the discipline of the soul, so that emotion does not give direction. Faith is not simply believing that God can do something. It is believing that what He does not do, or what He delays, also has meaning. In Hebrews we read, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen." Faith shapes what has not yet been revealed. It allows you to move confidently through uncertainty, because you trust God's character, not just His calendar. Faith is not mental optimism. It is spiritual reality, the deep knowledge that purpose always comes before clarity. The fruit of patience and faith. When patience and faith work together, they create something that nothing else can. Inner stillness in outer chaos, clarity in confusion, strength in silence, and more importantly, they keep you aligned with heaven's timing. God's plan is not to meet your expectations. It's to fulfill His purpose. When you let go of the need for immediate solutions, then you begin to see that what He is doing in you is always greater than what you are asking Him to do for you. The process will not always be comfortable, but here is what God builds in you. Through patience and faith, discernment, you learn to separate the voice from the noise. Tolerance, you build mental and spiritual tolerance. Wisdom, you begin to see life through an eternal perspective. Humility, You realize your timeline is not sovereign. Peace. You detach from consequences and anchor in presence. In delay, your pride is broken. Your fear is broken. Your intentions are purified. What else is left? Only truth, only substance, only spirit, our generation, and the deeper miracle. Because we are a generation addicted to speed and allergic to stillness, we know how to achieve, but we have forgotten how to be. We know how to respond, but we have lost the art of spiritual reflection. This message is important because many are turning away from the truth, not because it failed, but because it was taking too long, and in their impatience, they have missed the deeper miracle. So today, this message is not a comfortable cliche. It is a recalibration. It is an invitation to sit with the slow work of God, to return to the ancient wisdom of waiting, and to rediscover that true transformation is not instantaneous, but eternal. In the next 5 parts, we will delve deeper, intellectually, theologically, and psychologically, into the layered truths of patience and faith. We will explore the science of spiritual persistence, the inner architecture of endurance, the biblical psychology of waiting, the impact of delayed results on identity, the transformative power of long obedience. Each section will not only provide information, it will also rebuild your inner foundation. Because if your endurance is strong and your faith is clear, nothing can stop what God is doing in your life. In a world that celebrates speed, we are accustomed to believing that delay is denial, waiting is weakness, and stillness is stagnation. But spiritual truth has always challenged this notion. In the economy of heaven, speed is not a sign of blessing. Alignment is the real thing. What if this delay is divine? What if this waiting is the real work? What if the real answers grow in silence? Faith is not built when everything makes sense. It is built in that void where nothing makes sense. That space, called waiting, is where ego begins to crumble, clarity is revealed, and the soul finds its truest voice. Patience, an active process. Patience is not simply enduring time. It is spiritual alignment with divine timing. We often mistake patience for passivity, doing nothing and hoping for the best. But true patience is full of life. It is an active engagement with the present moment, even when the future is unclear. Patience is the discipline to stay centered when everything is changing. The strength to hold on, even when progress seems invisible. Refusing to rush results that are not yet ripe. Think of a seed planted in the ground. You don't pull it every day to see if it is growing. You wait. You trust the process. The same is true of God's work in your life. You don't have to force results. You just have to be faithful to the ground of the present. Faith, not an emotion, a decision. Many believe that faith is a mental elevation, a spiritual confidence that feels powerful. But real faith often doesn't feel like faith at all. Sometimes faith feels like questioning. Sometimes faith feels like silence. Sometimes faith feels like confusion. But there is a decision not to walk away. Faith is not an emotion. It is a decision. It is a choice to trust God's nature rather than your narrative. It is a decision to align with the truth, even when experience tells us otherwise. Faith is not a denial of reality. It is a deeper recognition than the reality of what the eyes see. Let's look at how Scripture illustrates the sanctity of waiting. Noah waited in the ark for over a year after the rain stopped, before the earth was ready. David was anointed king, but waited over a decade before taking the throne. Elijah prayed for rain, and even though the sky was clear, he sent his servant 7 times before the first clouds appeared. Why does God make his chosen ones wait? Because waiting builds something that cannot be immediately fulfilled: character, depth, discernment, humility. These are not spiritual accessories. They are the building blocks of destiny. Delay, inner warfare, and spiritual maturity. Delay is not just inconvenient. It is often a mental battle. When things don't happen on your timeline, a number of dangerous ideas can arise. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe God forgot about me. Maybe this dream never came true. Maybe nothing mattered. So the real battle isn't external, it's internal, in the mind. Every time you're told to wait, you're invited into battle with your own narrative. This is where patience becomes spiritual armor, and faith becomes your lens, not to avoid pain, but to interpret it accurately. When we're forced to slow down or stop, the mind initially rebels. We want solutions. We crave finality. But if you can stay in that uncomfortable space, something profound begins to happen. Your desires are purified. Your ego is shrunk. Your awareness is deepened. Your definition of success changes. Your reliance on control is loosened. This is not stagnation. This is holiness. God doesn't just answer prayers. He uses them to rebuild the one who prays. So the longer the delay, the deeper the transformation, if you allow it. Most people ask, why is this happening to me? But the spiritually mature ask, what is this preparing me for? Delay is often a protection from unprepared intent. Silence is often a place for soul alignment. Wandering is often a redirection to higher insight. Instead of doubting delay, what if you studied it? What is God not teaching you? What illusions are being exposed? What is the true source of your security? Who are you apart from the answers you are waiting for? These are not secondary questions. These are the curriculum of spiritual maturity, stillness and perspective. Stillness is not the absence of motion. It is focused motion in the soul. When you practice stillness, your reactions slow down. Your perception sharpens. Your listening deepens. And from that stillness, you gain perspective. Not just for results, for meaning too. The modern world creates noise, but the Spirit speaks in whispers, and only the patient have ears to hear it. When patience matures, it turns into clarity, because the more you wait in faith, the clearer your alignment with truth becomes. This means you begin to make decisions from conviction, not from instinct. You begin to walk from knowledge, not from hurt. You begin to choose what is eternal over what is urgent. Thus, patience is not just a virtue. It is a vision tool. It clears the fog of instinct and opens the way to purpose. God is not interested in making you fast. He's interested in making you permanent. Quick success creates pride. Slow success creates substance. That is why God uses time, not to punish, but to shape, refine, deepen, and strengthen you. And anything firmly established by time will survive the shaking that time brings. The strongest people in Scripture were not the most talented. They were the most formed. And formation takes time. Faith, the silent power. Real faith often doesn't scream. It doesn't always burn. It's not always poetic. Sometimes it's just this: waking up another day and believing again. Showing up in life without answers, but with alignment. Trusting the slow unfolding of grace. Faith is the fireproof part of the soul, and it's built on waiting, not on desire. Every day you choose faith over fear, patience over panic. You become untouchable by circumstances. Patience is not inaction. There are always things you can do while you wait. Strengthen your habits. Your daily rhythm is more powerful than sudden inspiration. Sharpen your mind. Embrace knowledge, not distraction. Deepen your prayers for presence, not for answers. Serve others. Shift the focus outward, not inward. Examine your motives. Refine the why behind what you want. Procrastination is your place of preparation. Use it with holy intent. Delay, a strainer, not a failure. Whatever doesn't come in God's time was not meant to come. Whatever endures beyond time was meant to stay. This means that delay is a strainer, not a failure. Every person that passes away during your season of waiting, they were not meant to be harvested. Every opportunity that disappears was not aligned with your future, no. Every door that closes was protection, not punishment. Time filters out lies, and what remains is always the real thing. Sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is be. Stay in the truth, stay in alignment, stay in the process. Because in a world where everything forces you to run, react, give up, or rush, being becomes a rebellion against shallowness, and the faith that stays grows. You now understand that. Waiting is not empty. It is full of unseen transformation. Faith is not a rush to results. It is a position of the soul. Patience is not weakness. It is strategic stillness. Delay is not denial. It is a divine tool. God's silence is not absence. It is subtle strategy. When you embrace faith with wisdom and clarity, you enter a life of depth that few have tasted, but was destined for all. What does this message mean to you? Time on a clock runs smoothly, but psychologically, time is warped. A minute of joy feels like a moment. A minute of suffering feels like a prison. So, the waiting that tests our faith is rarely about a date on a calendar. It's a matter of mental survival. This is where many people lose their way. They are not destroyed by the delay, but by what their minds do during the delay. To understand patience, we must understand the mind's relationship to time, the negative narrative of the mind. During delay, whenever you enter a phase of waiting, your brain reverts to anxiety. It fills the silence with stories, most of which are lies. Here are 3 of the most destructive lies. Nothing is happening. Reality. Just because you can't see progress doesn't mean there isn't progress. Seeds germinate underground. Silence is often the sound of sacred work. Everyone else is moving forward. Reality. Comparison is an illusion. No one else's timeline can define your timeline. Their apparent success may be superficial. Yours is spiritual. God has forgotten me. Reality. God is never absent. His silence is strategic, designed not to deny but to reveal. Your strength in the waiting stage depends on your ability to challenge and replace these negative narratives. The ego wants control. Waiting is a direct attack on that desire. That's why patience feels painful, not because of the time, but because of what the ego loses over time. The illusion of control, the comfort of clear results, the pride of quick success. The ego says, if it's not fast, it's not working. But the soul whispers, if it takes time, it must be real. True faith is born when the ego is silenced, not by force, but by surrender, brain response, and patience. Let's talk neurologically. Your brain is built for rewards. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation and satisfaction. Immediate gratification, scrolling, checking, buying, gives you small dopamine hits. But patience forces you to suppress dopamine for something bigger, to get later. This is where the brain resists. It sees waiting as punishment. But here's the flip side. Delayed rewards activate deeper neurological gratification. Why? Because waiting makes the final reward richer, more lasting. Patience actually improves your brain if you can tolerate short-term discomfort. One of the most dangerous loops of waiting is the what-if spiral. What if it never happens? What if I'm wasting my time? What if I'm misunderstanding God? What if this was all a mistake? This spiral leads to mental paralysis. You have to answer every what if with a powerful even if. What if it doesn't happen? Even if it doesn't happen, I will not compromise the truth. What if I make a mistake? Even if I make a mistake, I will improve in the process. What if God doesn't help? Even if He delays, I trust His nature. This is the battlefield of faith, replacing the loops of mental fear with spiritual declarations. Time, purpose, and personal growth. Many say, I feel like I wasted years. But on a spiritual level, no time is ever wasted, only misunderstood. God doesn't work in straight lines or linear logic. He works in layers, revelations, and transformations. The years you called wasted were actually character-building stages, moments of ego breaking, foundations of humility, wisdom, or deep healing. Restoration is part of His rhythm. Joel says, I will restore the years that the locust has eaten. Not days, not blessings, years. So stop mourning the past. It can be the foundation of your future authority. When you wait, a silent waste often begins in the mind, a resistance to the present. Thoughts like, I should have been further along by now. I shouldn't have felt this way. This shouldn't have happened. This mental resistance doesn't just create stress, it increases the suffering of procrastination. Here's the solution: basic acceptance. This doesn't mean surrender. This means full presence. Surrender to mental rebellion. When you accept your present state, your energy stops leaking. That energy becomes the power for tolerance, vision, and clarity. Waiting can turn into a spiral of negativity if you don't guard your perception. Gratitude is not a cheap life hack. It's a spiritual discipline with neurological implications. Studies have shown that consistent gratitude improves mental health, increases emotional resilience, strengthens relationships, increases long-term optimism. But more than that, gratitude aligns you with the vision of heaven. You stop obsessing over what is absent and start honoring what is present. That shift alone changes everything. Tests of patience, internal and external challenges. Believing that you are falling behind quickly destroys patience. But here's the spiritual truth. You can't miss what was destined for you. Your timeline is not broken. It's purpose-built. And what God has lined up for your life cannot be disrupted by someone else's success. Learn to bless others while you wait for your own success. This practice silences envy and unleashes joy. Because in the kingdom of God, one person's victory is not your loss. It's proof that the soil is fertile. Waiting is tiring, not because of time, but because of mental fatigue. That's why you need to develop the habit of resting daily. Return to the truth every morning. Align yourself with purpose, not panic. Replace mental noise with stillness. Reconnect with eternity, not with haste. This is not running away. It is alignment. The choice to place your mind in a deeper truth than your current emotions. In this way, waiting becomes a cleansing fire, not a mental prison. Faith does not ignore emotions. It interprets them with wisdom, healthy patience, and the mindset. Here's what emotionally healthy patience looks like. You feel disappointment, but don't talk out of it. You feel doubt, but come back to the truth. You feel tired, but don't make impulsive decisions. You feel anger, but use it as fuel for prayer, not destruction. Emotional intelligence does not suppress pain. It uses pain to understand the deeper processes of spiritual formation. Don't just listen to your thoughts. Talk to them. Teach them. Declare. This delay isn't denial. My timeline is not their timeline. Something deep inside me is happening. The better I wait, the stronger I become. God's silence is still tactful. Speak like a leader, because your mind is a follower by design. Either the culture trains it, or you do. While waiting, many opportunities will come that will yield quick results. Beware, not all open doors are divine. Ask, does this pace feel peaceful or stressful? Does it align with God's word, or does it just feed my ego? Is compromise necessary to feel good now? Patience gives you discernment. It trains you to see through the fast but fake, and wait for the slow but sacred. What you consistently focus on, you become. In the waiting stage, this principle is crucial. If you focus on delay, you will feel frustration. Injustice, you will feel bitterness. Loneliness, you will feel abandonment. But if you focus on growth, you will feel empowered. Purpose, you will feel anchored. Vision, you will feel alive. This is not positive thinking. This is spiritual warfare, fought through attention. The mind is the battlefield during procrastination. If you win the battle of thought, you will not simply survive waiting. You will emerge transformed by it. Because in the architecture of faith, every pause is a pillar, every silence is a classroom, and every delay is creating something in you that immediacy never could. Most people see waiting as a passive, empty, purposeless time. But spiritually, waiting is active construction. It's a sacred classroom, disguised as stillness. You are not being delayed. You are being developed. The problem? We focus so much on what we're waiting for. We miss what's being built in us. This is the hidden curriculum of divine delay, the deeper, invisible transformation that prepares you for what's coming. Think of patience like weightlifting. Each day, you choose to believe, even when nothing changes. You're resisting the gravity of doubt. And that resistance is what builds mental toughness, emotional stability, spiritual endurance. This strength isn't loud. It's not glamorous, but it becomes your unshakable core. When you finally reach your breakthrough, you won't just arrive, you'll be ready. People often say, just trust God. But trust isn't a switch. It's a muscle developed in the dark. You don't learn trust when you get everything instantly. You learn it when you walk through months, even years, of silence and still decide, God is still good. And with each choice, your heart builds a deeper language of intimacy with the divine. Eventually, trust becomes your default, not because life is easy, but because your soul has evolved. Modern culture teaches you that you're owed something just because you want it. But the kingdom teaches, desire does not equal readiness. Waiting exposes entitlement, the part of you that demands things from God without being formed for them. And then slowly, over time, that entitlement is replaced with humility, surrender, gratitude. Only then can you receive without being destroyed by the weight of the blessing. Because sometimes God doesn't say no. He says not yet, or it will crush you. Sometimes we say we want something, love, success, recognition. But the waiting exposes why we want it. Are you chasing love to escape loneliness? Are you chasing purpose to feed ego? Are you chasing success for validation? The delay isn't punishment, it's X-ray vision. It lets you see yourself clearly. Because when your motives become pure, your path becomes clear. Impatience leads to poor decisions. It makes you choose a relationship that looks good but isn't aligned, a job that pays well but kills your peace, a shortcut that gets you noticed but compromises your soul. Waiting refines your filter. You stop jumping at every yes. You start feeling out what carries divine weight. Discernment is the difference between temporary satisfaction and eternal alignment. And that's something only the waiting room can teach you. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is strategy. In stillness, you begin to hear what you couldn't in noise, heal what you hid in distraction, discover identity that wasn't tied to movement. God sometimes slows you down to restore your essence, because identity built in noise will collapse in silence. Stillness teaches you to separate who you are from what you do, and that is spiritual maturity. Bamboo plants are famous for one thing. They take years to sprout above the ground, but underground, they're growing massive root systems. Then, in one season, they shoot up feet in days. That's what divine waiting often looks like. Nothing above the surface, but beneath was deep spiritual infrastructure. So when the moment comes, you don't crack under success. You carry it with quiet power. When you're in a rush, you miss what matters. Waiting gives you time to reevaluate what you thought you wanted, refine your goals, reconnect to the deeper why. Suddenly, the thing you were chasing doesn't hold as much power, or it transforms into something deeper, richer, and more aligned with your purpose. Patience doesn't just delay the outcome, it matures your perspective. In the waiting season, God often asks you to move in small steps without showing you the full picture. This is obedience without evidence. It teaches you to follow whispers instead of signs, trust values over visible results, build in obscurity without applause. That kind of faith isn't noisy, it's unbreakable. It's the kind of faith that holds up in storms, the kind that survives spiritual droughts, the kind that makes demons nervous. Look at every great spiritual leader, Joseph, David, Moses, even Jesus. Each of them experienced extended waiting. And in that time, they weren't inactive. They were being trained in character, in emotional strength, in self-control, in relational wisdom, in vision clarity. Leadership without waiting is dangerous because it's built on charisma, not capacity. The delay isn't blocking your calling, it's building your anointing. Quick answers create casual faith, but waiting births reverence, a sacred awe of how God moves. You begin to see Him not as a vending machine, but as a master architect. You stop demanding things and start aligning with things. Reverence replaces urgency with clarity. It makes you quieter, more aware, more surrendered, and that shift makes you unshakable. Emotional maturity is one of the most powerful fruits of patience. During waiting, you learn to respond, not react, reflect, not rush, withhold, not waste, endure, not escape. You begin to lead your emotions rather than being led by them. This training turns your soul from a glass cup into a golden vessel, able to hold weight, wisdom, and wonder. Waiting seasons often feel useless, but in God's ecosystem, unseen does not mean unfruitful. Progress often looks like emotional triggers that no longer control you, patterns you used to repeat that you now resist prayers. You now pray with fire, not fear, peace that stays even when things don't move. Don't measure progress by external milestones. Measure it by internal mastery. That's what builds you for the next level. What looks like delay is divine development. You're not waiting for a breakthrough. You're being turned into the kind of person who can carry one. That's not just spiritual talk. It's transformation, mental, emotional, soul deep. And when you finally walk into the thing you've been praying for, you'll realize the waiting was never in the way. It was the way. There are two clocks in operation. Chronos, man's time, linear, scheduled, urgent. Kairos, God's time, intentional, divine, perfect. We live our lives by Chronos, but breakthroughs arrive through Kairos. And until we understand the difference, we'll constantly feel frustrated behind incomplete spiritual maturity, begins when we stop asking when and start seeking how do I align. We schedule everything: careers, marriages, success, visibility. We obsess over milestones: by 30, by 40, by retirement. But control is a myth. Earthly timing creates anxiety because it's built on comparison and fear of missing out. The result? We rush. And what we build quickly often lacks spiritual durability. God doesn't bless speed, He blesses alignment. God's clock doesn't tick like ours. He is not rushed by your urgency. He is not impressed by your deadlines. Why? Because God is never late. He is always on time. His time. Your calling is not running away from you. It is being shaped with you. Alignment requires surrender, letting go of when it should happen, and embracing who you're becoming until it does. One of the greatest spiritual errors is mistaking silence for rejection. We assume no response, no blessing, no open doors, no purpose, no visible movement, no progress. But divine delay is often divine protection. A wait is not a no. It's a not like this, not yet, or not through them. You're not forgotten. You're being positioned. Imagine getting your dream early. Love before maturity, influence before integrity, wealth before discipline. The weight of what you prayed for can crush you if your character isn't ready. That's why God doesn't just prepare the blessing for you. He prepares you for the blessing. Alignment is not God catching up to your schedule. It's you growing into His design. Ecclesiastes, to everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. We treat life like a stopwatch. God moves through seasons. There's a season to sow, a season to be hidden, a season to break, a season to heal, a season to rise. Fighting the season only prolongs it. Peace comes when we discern. What is this season meant to build in me? The feeling of being behind is often rooted in comparison. You look left and right and feel like your life is delayed. But destinies are not uniform timelines. They are divine blueprints, customized, unique, sacred. The path of another is not the measure of your progress. Your story is not late. It's layered. You are not behind. You are becoming. God does not operate like a GPS. He doesn't simply route you the fastest way. He chooses the transformative way. You may not see the full picture, but every delay, detour, and silence is a brushstroke on your soul. While you wait, your spirit is purified. Your motives are refined. Your wisdom deepens. You're not stuck. You're being sculpted. When you trust spiritual timing, anxiety begins to lose its grip. You stop racing. You start resting. You begin to understand. God hasn't forgotten you. He's preparing something specific, and it will arrive right on time. Peace is not the absence of waiting. Peace is trusting that what's meant for you is not delayed. It's divinely appointed. What you do while you wait isn't filler. It's formation. Look at David, anointed as king, but went back to tending sheep, learned worship in isolation, learned leadership in wilderness, fought Goliath after fighting lions in private. Divine timing gave him space to develop substance. You may feel unseen, but you're not unimportant. God is sharpening your vision before He expands your visibility. Some of the greatest breakthroughs happen in what seems like nothing seasons. You're not making headlines. You're not seeing change. But under the surface, you're growing roots. You're shedding ego. You're finding God in silence. This is the hidden power of divine timing. It creates depth before display. Are you chasing purpose or chasing applause? God delays things sometimes to expose our true desire. Because if you're not okay waiting with God, you won't be okay walking in purpose. The delay isn't punishment, it's diagnosis. It shows you what drives you and invites you to recalibrate. The world teaches hustle, grind until you make it. But heaven teaches rhythm. Be still, hear clearly. Move when God moves. Hustle burns out. Rhythm sustains. Divine timing teaches you to listen to the tempo of the Spirit, not the ticking of the clock. There will be days it feels like God skipped your name, like others get what you've cried for. But trust this, God is not on your schedule. He is on His strategy. And when the moment comes, when the door opens, it won't just be the right opportunity. It will be the right you. Your waiting is not wasted. Your delay is not a defect. God's clock is sacred. His silence is intentional. His timing is never off. Your job is not to force the season. Your job is to remain faithful until it aligns. Because when it aligns, it won't just fit your need. It will fulfill your soul. Patience is not passive. It is an act of silent strength. It doesn't mean you are doing nothing. It means you are trusting while not seeing, believing without confirming, standing without feeling. Most of the rewards that matter in life, peace, purpose, inner authority, grow underground long before they are seen. Patience tills the soul. It does not delay the fruit. It matures the fruit. The reason many collapse under pressure is not because they lacked opportunity. It's because they lacked interior scaffolding. Faith without patience is unstable. Desire without discipline is destructive. Patience builds emotional resilience. It teaches you how to stay grounded in uncertainty. It makes your joy untouchable by delay. It builds internal balance between ambition and surrender. Every time you choose not to panic, you build power. You can gain fast, followers, fame, fortune. But if your foundation is rushed, everything collapses. God doesn't promise speed. He promises strength. Fast may feel good in the moment, but fruitful lasts through storms. The strongest people you know were built, not launched. They've sat through silences, carried invisible burdens, waited with no applause. That's the hidden cost of substance. What you become in the wait is more important than what you receive after the wait. Circumstances can be taken. Character sustains. Joseph waited years after being betrayed by his brothers. When elevated, he wasn't just a man of power. He was a man of wisdom, mercy, forgiveness. God didn't just give him the position. He gave him the depth to carry it. Your delay is doing the same for you. Trees with deep roots can weather brutal storms. Tall success without deep patience topples in turbulence. That's why God works slowly. So when the winds rise, you're not just impressive, you're immovable. Your calling isn't fragile, but your identity can be, if not rooted in patience and faith. God grows your life like a forest, layered, rooted, resilient. Ego says, I deserve it now. Spirit says, I'll receive it when I'm ready. Impatience is often a cover for entitlement. That's why God delays answers, to disarm pride, to teach you that purpose is not earned by demand, but discovered through humility. Faith and patience refine ego into gratitude. You stop saying, now why me? You start saying, thank you for choosing to shape me. Faith is not wishful thinking. It is the lens through which the invisible becomes real. You begin to see meaning in struggle, see design in detours, see God's hand in what seems like a mess. Without faith, delays feel like denials. With faith, delays become preparation. Patience helps you see what speed never allows. We are conditioned to equate movement with meaning, but spiritual power comes from stillness in storms. Patience teaches you how to walk slow without losing direction, how to wait without giving up, how to trust when others laugh at your delay. Stillness is not weakness. It's a sacred declaration. I trust a rhythm greater than my own. One of the greatest mysteries of patience and faith is this. You may feel behind in results, but you're often ahead in development. People may get things before you, but you may be getting wisdom they'll never find. Speed gives you output. Patience gives you insight. And insight lasts longer than accomplishments. Patience teaches non-attachment. You release control. You detach identity from outcomes. You stop manipulating timing. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care from a place of surrender, not obsession. The truly faithful are not those who force doors open. They are those who knock, then wait, trusting that the right door will open by design. When you receive through patience and faith, the blessing is different. It's not tinted with fear. It's not wrapped in ego. It's not shaky under scrutiny. Because what God ordains through divine timing is unshakable, irrefutable, undeniable. Nobody can take it, because it wasn't earned. It was aligned. Some burdens look like blessings at first. Fame, wealth, relationships, influence. But if your hands aren't ready, they'll slip right through. God waits to bless you until you've been trained to hold the weight. He's not punishing you. He's protecting you. He's building your grip. So when the time comes, you carry it with grace, not fear. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who has nothing to prove. That kind of quiet confidence is born from patience and forged in private. You're being slow built. So when people finally notice you, you won't need to explain yourself. Your presence will speak louder than your voice. That's the fruit of spiritual patience. You don't perform, you radiate. When you've suffered well, waited well, believed through silence, you become a refuge for others. Your life speaks wisdom. Your words carry weight. Your presence brings peace. Why? Because you've sat in the fire and didn't run. You've seen storms and still stood. You've waited long and became whole. This is legacy, not what you do, but what you embody. You aren't waiting to be powerful. You are waiting to be prepared. You are not delayed. You are being developed. And when it happens, the door, the calling, the moment, it won't be random or rushed or reactive. It will be right, and you will be ready. That is the fruit of patience and faith. Peace beyond time, strength beyond explanation, wisdom beyond your years. The world will ask how you became so steady, and you will answer, I waited and I trusted. You waited, you prayed, you believed, and many times you heard nothing. But that silence wasn't God ignoring you. God was creating you. There is something sacred in the quiet moments of life. Moments when you doubt everything, yet you choose to believe. Moments when everything seems still, but deep down inside you, something keeps growing. That silence is sacred. It is proof that God is creating in places that people can't see. Time doesn't just pass, it colors you. Every delayed moment adds a layer. Every unseen sacrifice deepens your tone. Every silent prayer enriches the details of your design. You started this journey hoping for a destination, but you end up realizing that the destination is not a place, it is a person. And that person is you, who has become the waiting time. That is what faith and patience provide. A transformed soul, not just an answered prayer. You wanted clarity. God gave you mystery. You wanted results. God gave you moderation. You wanted speed. God gave you stability. Because sometimes waiting is the answer. God is not cruel, but God is wise. He saw what you couldn't see. He knew what you really wanted, not results, but becoming. What patience and faith have given you, no algorithm can teach, no motivational speech can create, no shortcut can imitate. You now possess depth that cannot be imitated, knowledge that doesn't scream, a spirit that doesn't budge under pressure the world moves in a hurry. But you stay forward with confidence, not because everything is solved, but because your foundation is no longer dependent on results. You are anchored in the unseen world, revisiting your journey. You look back now. You can see it. That rejection wasn't punishment. It was protection. That silence wasn't empty. It was sacred. That detour wasn't wrong. It was alignment. You thought God was late, but now you see He was perfect, because He wasn't preparing the world for you. He was preparing you for the world, and that preparation made all the difference. You don't have to convince people that God is real. Your peace will say it. Your tolerance will show it. Your story will radiate it. Because now, you don't just talk about patience. You embody it. And when others come to you, filled with fear, anxiety, or doubt, you will have a different tone. You won't say, "Just be patient." You'll say, "I've been there. And I promise, it's worth the wait." You will be someone else's answered prayer. What you got most from this journey wasn't an outcome. It was a revelation. You now see differently. Where you once saw only problems, you see process. You see strength in waiting, not weakness. You see God's timing as a gift, not delay. That is spiritual maturity, not chasing after blessings, but becoming a blessing. Not waiting with frustration, but waiting with formation. Your eyes are open. You now walk by faith, not by sight. And yet, you see more clearly than ever before. A new version of you. In the beginning, you wanted doors to open. Now, you have become the kind of person who can walk through any door. You have become steadfast in chaos, confident in delays, strong in uncertainty. This version of you was not there before this journey. It was created moment by moment in the quiet surrender of patience. This version of you is not desperate, not anxious, not reactive, but ready, established, resilient, and finally, free. As you move forward, here is the knowledge you now live with. God never wastes waiting. Time is not your enemy. It is your ally. Delay comes in divine guise. Patience destroys the ego that pride used to destroy. Faith is not about control. It is faith without guarantees. You are not leaving this message with an answer. You are leaving it with alignment, not certainty, but peace, not guarantees, but stability. And in this world, that is real power. Maybe no one will notice what has changed in you, but you will. You will wake up feeling lighter. You will face the storm calmly. You will dream bigger and wait longer. Not because everything is resolved, but because you have finally understood. Patience is not waiting longer. It is waiting better. You are no longer begging time to move faster. You are honoring the divine rhythm of becoming. And in doing so, you have stepped into something that few find. Quiet strength, deep faith, enduring faith, not borrowed, not taught, but formed, in the fire of patience, in the hands of God.